You don't notice how much your title carries you until someone asks, "So what do you do?" And you pause. Not because you don't work, not because you're lost, but because your title doesn't fit anymore. And with that realization, something shifts. The way people see you feels different. The way you see yourself feels different. And suddenly, everything you relied on to belong feels lighter or empty or off balance. Nothing falls apart. You're still able, still making a difference, still living the life you've built. But the label you relied on, it no longer does the work it once did. And that's unsettling in a very specific way. Because for years, that title wasn't just what you did, it was how people placed you, how conversations moved, how you understood your own worth. The thing is, your role, your work, your title was your identity. And now you begin to notice it in small everyday ways. Introductions, they feel awkward. And it's not just in real life, you start noticing it everywhere. Watch almost any situation where people are introduced on a panel, on a quiz, anywhere someone's about to speak for themselves. First comes the name, sometimes an age, where they're from, and then what they do. It's the shorthand we've all learned. Before someone speaks for themselves, a role speaks for them. We're used to reading that as context, as reassurance, as a way to place someone quickly. So when that line is missing or no longer fits, it doesn't just feel awkward. It feels like you stepped outside something everyone else still expects. You might reach for something, anything to make yourself recognisable again. Consultant, volunteer, coach, content creator, anything. And when it's not enough, that's when the weight hits. The wobble isn't a failure, it's a signal that something long held is loosening, that the structure you leaned on for decades without even realising no longer holds you. And suddenly, you're just you. It's not just practical, it hurts. There's an odd feeling in your chest, a small panic that maybe you're becoming visible, a tightness in your stomach, a restless energy in your hands. Sometimes shame sneaks in, quiet but persistent. Did I fail? You notice envy you didn't expect. Colleagues moving forward, job titles unchanged, their paths obvious. And you notice relief too. Relief that you no longer have to perform, but it's mingled with guilt. We tie ourselves to titles because they were safe. They gave structure. They gave shorthand for our value. They told the world what we were worth without having to explain ourselves. And now, without it, there's nothing familiar to lean on. The truth is, your title was never you. It was a container, a box, a shape that organised your time, your energy, your effort. But it never held the substance inside, the real you. Some psychologists call this role exit. They found that when people let go of long held roles, the first experience is almost always disorientation, sometimes distress. And that makes sense. It's simply how our minds adjust. We've leaned on roles for so long that they carried our sense of self. Now, without that container, you're left just holding yourself. And that's the opportunity. Inside that absence are the threads that define you beyond the title. The routines that settle you, morning coffee, a walk around the block, a playlist that always hits the right mood. The things you return to because they matter, calling a friend, tending to a hobby, cooking a favourite meal. The work, the curiosity, the things you get absorbed in without asking, writing, building, learning, creating, simply for the feeling it gives. These are the real anchors of identity. They survive when a title doesn't. Think about that question again, the one we've all been asked. So, what do you do? For decades it worked. You answered with a title, the world understood, but now it doesn't fit. The answer isn't about proving your usefulness. It's about noticing what organises your life naturally, the things you return to, the attention you hold, the choices you make. It's messy. It's awkward sometimes, but it's honest. It's the first step towards knowing yourself on your own terms. Even noticing this, though, creates a pause, a quiet moment that belongs to you, long enough to hear what's been underneath all the roles. Before anything new emerges, there's space. It's uncomfortable, empty, quiet to the point that it almost feels loud. Most of us are taught to fill that space immediately, to perform, to replace, to label ourselves again. But this space isn't a problem. It's a sign, a loosening, a pause that lets something real settle in. And yes, it feels fragile, vulnerable, even exposed. And I want to ask you, if you weren't or aren't defined by a title, how would you answer that question? What do you return to even when no one's asking? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what matters most to you. The question now isn't who am I in the old sense, it's who am I when no one's watching. Identity at this stage isn't something you discover, it's something you reassemble from the things that are still there, the rhythms you return to, the moments that feel right, small victories, small joys, unnoticed by anyone else. These become the real measure of self. There's research suggesting that people who keep their own rhythms and personal habits going after a big role change, they often feel more grounded and steady, rather than putting all their sense of self into a title. Identity isn't a label, it's living attention, and it's waiting for you to notice it. Sometimes you just notice it. You stop introducing yourself the way you used to. The old words that held your days together stop working, and for a while, nothing replaces them. If this feels familiar, don't rush to name it. Don't rush to replace it. The space isn't a problem. It's what's left when an old structure finally lets go. And if it feels a little unstable, that's not a mistake. It's the sound of something loosening before anything new needs to be built. It's also an invitation to pay attention, to feel, and to begin to shaping what matters next. See you in the next one.